Hi, and welcome to the Jade podcast. My name is David Riche, and today we're discussing digital transformation in the high-tech industry. We're honored to have with us today Raja Sekhar. Raja is Vice President at Jade Global and is responsible for the Oracle and CRM lines of business. Raja is a graduate of the Program for Leadership Development from Harvard Business School and has received the Certificate of Business Excellence from UC Berkeley Haas School of Business. At Jade Global, Raja is responsible for thought leadership, strategic planning and execution, partnership management, and customer success. Raja, it's a pleasure. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, David. Glad to be here.
Now, the term high-tech's a little difficult to define because technology changes all the time. So what do you specifically mean by high-tech?
Sure. So high-tech ecosystem, as you can imagine, is pretty wide by itself, right? Pretty wide by definition. But in fact, every industry has been completely transformed by high-tech. And you can name it. You can name it finance, you can say retail, insurance, auto, healthcare, and so on. But for our discussion, we'll just keep it towards our traditional definition of high-tech, which are primarily about these 5 verticals, which includes software, social media, high-tech, telecom, devices, device manufacturers, and so on. And I think it can be further divided into probably 4 different micro segments, which I would probably further elaborate, right? So first one is definitely chip manufacturer, like semicon companies. And within that, there are both fabless and there are the companies which are fab owned. And there are also the companies which are equipment manufacturers. And there are good examples, like companies which are actual chip makers are like Intel, Marvell, Texas Instruments, and so on. And there are companies which are equipment manufacturers like Lam Research, and some of these large companies which are supplying equipment for the semicon companies. And the other categories are device manufacturers. And within device manufacturers, again, there are further subcategories like network devices or medical devices or consumer devices. And just to give some examples, network device companies are famously large ones like Cisco's of the world or Juniper Networks of the world. And there are smaller companies like Fortinet or even the FireEye or Palo Alto Networks and NetApp and so on. And there are consumer device companies which are like D-Link or Netgear and so on. And there are companies which are medical device manufacturers like Stryker or Intuitive Surgical and so on. And then the next category is software and social media. Within software, social media, again, there are different type of subcategories. Software could be enterprise software, could be consumer software, and within the social media, there are platforms. And you can name multiple companies there, like, for example, enterprise software, it could be Oracle, SAP, Microsoft, and so on. For the larger ones, there are smaller companies as well, like Dell, Boomi, MuleSoft, which is now with Salesforce, and so on. Whereas consumer softwares could be like your storage companies like Dropbox, Carbonate, Box itself, and so on. And social media platforms, again, is a pretty wide by itself. So you can have platform players like Facebook of the world or YouTube and Twitter and Pinterest and Glassdoor, and we can keep naming. And then there are last category is telecom providers, which actually are further can be different subcategories by itself. Some which are operators, some which are equipment providers again, and there are some which are data centers. So likewise, there is a pretty wide nature of the whole high-tech industry as a whole. But Jade, as a specific company, we are focusing on certain set of companies where we have a much deeper understanding, and I'd like to talk more about it. But that's how I define high-tech, David, though it may be a lot wider, but there are so many different micro verticals.
Got it. Thanks. So let's focus on these 5 segments. I think you mentioned device manufacturers, telecom, social media, software, and semiconductor. Did I get that right?
Yep, you got it.
Great. Well, the very nature of high tech implies that these businesses are complex, they're innovative, and I know that they're always changing. I'm curious to know a little bit about the challenges and opportunities for them. On the one hand, I know that they've got the same goals as any industry. They want stability and growth. But on the other hand, I think that there's some unique challenges that they face in the high-tech industry. What are some of the significant challenges that the high-tech industry faces?
Yeah, that's a good point, and actually keeps me interested in this industry a lot. First and foremost, like all industries, high-tech is not very different in terms of industry problems. They also have many set of similar problems, but I'm going to talk about the specific ones which are unique to high-tech. And there are some of the ones which comes to my mind while I'm talking about is changing business models is one of the most prominent one for high tech, where business models constantly change. For example, it used to be, especially for consider software companies, it used to be perpetual sales for long time. Now they are completely had to adopt a new model called SaaS, and now within SaaS there are subscriptions, there are usage based. And there are various different terms and conditions are coming in trying to position themselves in the marketplace. So they're going through a massive transformation. And also regulatory environment is pretty important for high tech, especially they have to rely a lot on the talent. They have to rely a lot of international trade. And when the tariffs situations keep changing, that causes a lot of disruptions for their supply chain and also talent pool. Of course, also comes the taxes. The tax regulations have to keep up with the newer models because now traditional software actually can be sold in so many different ways now. And the last one, I think the most important one is, which actually is very unique for software with high-tech industry, is the threat of competition. So what I mean by that is the entry barrier for high-tech company, a new company to come and open a new software company or new device company, which used to be a big endeavor in the past. It's no more. The cost of technology has come down so significantly that anybody can come and compete with any established player. And we have so many examples now that happened. So what that kind of situation really puts the companies which are coming up new, or even the established companies, to face big hurdle and keep themselves up with the competition. And to make that happen, there are unique ways they actually come and address it. And one of the most unique ways is they have to be a company which can grow constantly. If the moment they get stagnated for some reason, there'll be competition, will be takeaway. So the concept of grow or die really applies to high tech significantly than probably any other industry. And that puts that whole mantra puts very different perspective with their applications or their business application or infrastructure. And since we at Jade focus on IT applications, so I'll try to translate that problem into what actually happens in the IT applications per se. Now, with this threat that they have to keep growing, and the growing is not just one-fold, two-fold, but many folds over year on year. So what that means is they have to have a resilient IT applications, IT systems, so they don't keep adding so much manpower at the same rate or at the same factor of the way they are growing, then it becomes non-competitive for them. They can lose their advantage. So only way they can grow and grow meaningfully, grow to sustain, grow profitably, is if they can efficiently manage that growth by also keeping their processes and systems optimal. And that is the unique challenge which high tech has versus probably any other companies ever had. Now, given that this is a challenge, and now I want to turn into an opportunity, because that was another question you had, right?
Yeah. So those sound like significant challenges indeed. I know that you mentioned things like changing business model, going from previous models to subscription or usage based. I know you talked about regulatory environment. I also know that you talked about the lower entry barriers for competition, all of which requires them to be able to have some kind of a solution in place that's going to help them meet these challenges. What kinds of opportunities are available, and specifically, what kinds of opportunities for solutions does Jade Global offer to help them?
Yeah, sure. So I think there is one more paradigm I want to share before I jump into the solutions,
Okay.
because this is more relevant in today's world, right? So
Okay.
if you can think about today what's happening with pandemic coming in. So there was a huge change which whole industry, whole world has undergone because of pandemic. And what really happened for high tech, and there are, if you reflect back and what's happening in the industry and across different companies, pandemic has accelerated the digital transformation across all the companies across the world. So what that means now, a digital transformation, there are first and foremost is the ability for people to work from anywhere, right? So that means the companies are buying more of high tech solutions and services from this bunch of this industry than before, to help them become more competitive than ever, right? And to operationalize itself. Secondly, the level of automation which is required now by a lot of these companies, mainly because they got to be lot more nimble, a lot more efficient, mainly because across the board there has been significant reduction in the revenue opportunities. There is a cost pressure, and the pandemic actually is appealing all these companies to find ways to optimize their business model. And when that comes in, the only way to optimize is to become more efficient. And the way people are driving towards efficiency is how can they automate it. That is another big avenue or big opportunity for high tech industry as a whole. And that's a huge opportunity which out there for these high tech companies to go and capture it. So that means there is more pressure to scale and scale faster, scale rapidly, as probably never seen before kind of scenario. Now, coming to what the other part of the question is, what Jade is doing about it. So realizing the fact that there are the nature of the business is so significant, is such a way that they have to grow as significantly, as faster as this industry demands them to. So we have built a center of excellence with the experience of across 150 different clients we have been working very closely with for the last few years. And what our center of excellence really is doing is constantly R&D investments are going in to explore what are the leading world-class practices which all of these companies are really employing, and what we are learning from them of making their systems and processes more efficient. And there are very good common set of traits we have recognized, and using that we have built what we call as our high-tech solution. And I'll tell you what it means, what all it contains. So fundamentally, it comes with close to a set of use cases. In fact, our use cases, the way we looked at, is about 120 different use cases across all the different types of sales. Then there are a bunch of pre-built business processes. And when we consolidated everything, we found about 70 plus common business processes, which are really applicable and can be deployed to any new high-tech customer or any existing customer who doesn't have that put in place. So coming back to the use cases for a second, what I mean by use cases or sales use cases, right? So today you can sell remotely. You can sell through your distributors. You can sell through your resellers. You can sell direct. You can sell through e-commerce. You can have direct sales in a way that people can do a self-service. And that goes along with your e-commerce sales, which can be in both B2B and B2C world. And you can do upsells further on top of it, and you can also different type of products you can sell. You can sell a product which is completely bundled, or a single product, or it's a subscription. You can sell usage-based products. You can sell hardware, software, so professional services, and the list can go on. And when we added all of them, we noticed that there are about 170 or 120 different type of use cases which are required to make sure this whole industry can benefit from, which is commonly happening in the industry. And similarly, about 70 plus processes across order cash, across quote to order, across revenue recognition, across supply chain, across product lifecycle management, across project executions, across billing, across financials, record to report processes. And we consolidate all of these processes into what we saw as best practices, which are commonly used across all these high-tech companies. And then we also looked at what are the typical integrations which are required when you are trying to build a solution which can scale for future. You can't just rely on one product or one solution. It needs to work in an ecosystem of multiple products within your company. You can have a good best of the breed CRM system. You can have good best of the breed ERP system. You can have good best of the breed BI system, and so on, right? So in that environment, how can you really scale? So that becomes significant, right? So what we noticed is there are about common integration which are required across all these industries. Name it EDI integrations. It could be Rosetta based integration. It could be app-to-app integrations. It could be third-party integrations. Like every company will need to integrate with banks, for example. Every company will need to integrate with some kind of expense management solution, or you can have one ERP solution where you can have expense management solution. And so on. So there are so many common set of integrations, and when we actually again looked at all of them together, we saw 40 plus pre-built integrations, which probably every company can benefit from. And then again, we listed them down, and some of the emerging integrations also. So now going back to the use cases about the sales, there is new use case which is emerging out there. One of them is marketplace sales, right? So companies want to be able to sell in the marketplace, a public marketplace, for example, Amazon or Azure or Google Play or App Store. And these are Salesforce App Exchange, and these are the marketplaces where you can deploy your solutions or products, and you want customers to just consume from there as well. So that's another avenue, as you call it, like emerging avenue to sell or consume your solution. So we have an ability to integrate that back to your ecosystem again. So that's what one of the patterns which is coming up, and we are already on top of it. Similarly, there are different reference architectures. So not every reference architecture will work for every company. So we found that there are commonly 5 different architectures, which probably most of these companies will fit in. But even further to that, there could be some architectures maybe still applicable for some companies, some could be further extended. But as a part of the solution, we noticed that 5 different architectures will support most of the companies. And this are what does this reference architecture even contain, right? So it does contain definitely a solution framework, which includes how different systems will interact with each other, what functionality we need to be deployed in each of these applications, but also how the processes will work end to end, how the information get exchanged, how your master data or transactional data can be managed, how can data warehousing, how reporting can work together, how your security model will work together. So all that aspects, your integrations, your application footprint, your security model, both users and data, all part of that architecture. In addition, a couple of other attributes, we have also some purpose-built solutions on top of it. That means some of the solutions which doesn't come out of box from the solution provider. For example, Salesforce or Oracle or integration platforms or BI solutions doesn't give you ready-made solution there, but we noticed some unique solutions for the industry. Let's name it, like for semicon industry, for example, they have unique need to manage their excess and obsolete inventory, which is a critical portion of their inventory reserves, which they have to manage quarter on quarter, a month and month. So we have a solution to do that because there's no package solution, but it will work along with our rest of the solution. Similarly, there is a solution called reverse logistics for network devices and medical devices. When the unit needs to be repaired or needs to be replaced, that is a very expensive process by itself, but there is no out-of-box one product or one solution which can solve this problem. There is a bunch of processes which needs to be working together to make that happen. So there is one solution we have, again, what we call as purpose-built solution. And likewise, we have close to 12 such purpose-built solutions as part of our complete high-tech solution framework. And in addition, there are a lot of new innovations we have built in as well, considering RPA, robotic process automation, which can help a lot of these processes to get further efficient. Going with the overall theme back to what challenges high-tech faces, where they have to constantly automate by multiple factors every few months, every few quarters. So our RPA solution, which consists of many use cases, and some of them are like invoice automation or receipt application automation or rec approval automation, PO approval automation. Some of these activities which can take a lot of manual time and a lot of time which can be efficiently repurposed. We can bring that automations in through our platform, called our own patented platform called Canvas. And all of this, and then there's one more interesting one called test automation solution, where not only it's one-time job to get this, but the companies are going through what we call as continuous transformation. It is it's not like one-time job that you transform and then you are done with it. The business models will keep changing. Believe it or not, business new use cases keeps emerging. So how can you make sure that you keep your solutions up and running? So there is a test automation solution which comes into play, where it can enable to keep your TCO, total cost of ownership, at the lowest possible level. So that's again a patented solution called Xenon, which is part of our framework. And all of that is encompassed through our what we call as demo-based design methodology. What does demo-based design methodology means, right? So instead of, and that is really applicable for a solution. So instead of going and saying what you really need and gather all of the requirements and try to configure, build something, we come up with the readiness about all the different use cases which your industry will typically need. You may need now some of them you need probably few years down the line. So we show you all of them, and we make a recommendations proactively, where the industry is going. Some of them you are already thought about it. Some of the times, some customers have not even thought about those use cases, and they would appreciate those kind of recommendations. And based on that, we demo the end-to-end solution, and then we can choose what they really want, and then we go and implement, rather than trying to go to the whole old school methodology of give me your requirements, then we'll build something for you. So in a nutshell, the goal is to solve the problem of this scaling and several other issues which we see with the high tech for all the levels. There could be SMBs who are facing these problems. There could be mid-sized companies which could be facing these problems. There could be enterprise solutions, which could be enterprise-grade companies which could be facing these problems too. And they don't have to take the whole thing. They can take one component, two components, half of the solution, whichever place they want to really transform. They can consume whatever portion of the solution they like to consume. But that kind of is how we're approaching this problem and what our solution is, David.
Wow. I mean, this high-tech solution sounds really impressive. You talked about 120 different sales use cases and over 70 pre-built business processes and 40-something pre-built integrations and 5 reference architectures, 5 RPA use cases you talked about, as well as different pre-built, purpose-built solutions. You talked about your test automation framework, which I've had experience with and is wonderful. And I really liked how you talked about that demo-based design implementation methodology. I know that that's reduced the amount of time to make these kinds of digital transformation implementations. But I'm curious about this. This solution sounds really impressive. Have you implemented it at other companies? Why would I, as a high-tech business, want to go for this high-tech solution? What kinds of experience do you have implementing it, and what kinds of benefits would I see from you implementing this kind of solution at my company?
Yeah, that's a question which always keeps us awake to make sure that there's a good ROI it can give back to the clients, and there is no two ways about it. It needs to work. We have implemented this solution at several clients, and the 150 clients experience I was mentioning about, some of them have taken all of the solution we have. Some of them have consumed few of the solutions, but off late we just
how many customers did you say? 150?
Yeah, 150 such customers we have.
Wow.
So it has been evolved over the period of last 15 years or so. It has come to a shape where it has become more or less end-to-end now. So I see that recently we just did a webinar with a company called Anchor Free, which is now called Pango, where they're one of the consumers of this solution. So there are quite a few customers who are interested now to get the end-to-end portion of the solution. And the kind of benefits you talked about, what we realized is there are two ways to look at the benefits, right? First one is definitely what kind of savings you can achieve in the initial implementation.
Sure.
And we have noticed that some of these companies can achieve up to 40 to 50% savings in the initial implementation itself. Just
40 to 50%?
That's right.
Wow.
Just by deploying it right in the first phase, because now we are doing demo-based designs. You don't have to really go through the whole requirement cycles and drawing to that, because pre-built, a lot of things are already there working. We have design artifacts, pre-configured solution as part of it. So a lot of content is ready to go. It needs to be deployed and start testing and then go live. Only critical path is the availability of the business stakeholders to come and test it with us, right? So that's the only goal there. But we have seen huge reductions there. But the biggest ROI, I feel, is the one which comes after. So what happens after it is deployed? Uh, the one which has a huge ability to scale. Right? You don't have to worry about future investments into a retransformation. You still have to do a level of what I call continuous transformation, which is what this solution enables you to. But you don't have to do another massive retransformation because your systems cannot scale. So that risk kind of gets eliminated.
Right. So you're giving them the ability to scale as well in the future. So this is an investment really for the future.
Exactly.
As well as the present.
Exactly. And that's where the value is in terms of how much ROI. And it is very difficult to quantify that ROI because a company which is growing like tenfold, the ROI will be probably 10 times. But a company which is growing like 2x, 3x, it could be like 2x, 3x. So it varies from what kind of, how much juice you can take out of the solution.
Wow. Those are still some impressive numbers. Raja, I see that we're getting to the bottom of the hour. I want to thank you for sharing your time with us today. I've learned about some of the key differentiators that Jade Global offers, the high-tech industry, and frankly, I'm excited about the future. I hope you can join me again in future podcasts and dive more deeply into the specifics of this promising solution. In addition, I've got a bunch of other topics that I'd love to discuss with you.
Thanks, David. It was really exciting talking to you. And hopefully, listeners would have enjoyed this discussion as well. And I'm always available for further detailed discussions whenever required. But thank you very much, David. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Raja. I also want to thank the listeners for tuning in today. Please visit us at jadeglobal.com, where you can find rich and valuable content to act as a roadmap for your high-tech digital transformation. I'm David Riche. Good day.
Thank you.